In the realm of horror fantasy, monsters have long captivated our imaginations and haunted our nightmares. These terrifying creatures, born from the darkest corners of human creativity, serve as powerful symbols of our deepest fears and anxieties. From ancient myths to modern literature and cinema, monsters have evolved alongside our collective psyche, reflecting the changing landscape of our cultural fears. The origins of monsters in horror fantasy can be traced back to ancient folklore and religious texts. Creatures like dragons, vampires, and werewolves have their roots in centuries-old tales, passed down through generations. These early monsters often represented the unknown, embodying the dangers that lurked beyond the safety of civilization. As society progressed, so did the complexity of our monsters, adapting to reflect new fears and societal concerns. In the 19th century, Gothic literature breathed new life into monster mythology. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein introduced the concept of man-made monsters, exploring the ethical implications of scientific advancement. Bram Stoker's Dracula reimagined the vampire as a sophisticated and seductive being, tapping into Victorian-era anxieties about sexuality and foreign influences. The 20th century saw monsters transition from literature to the silver screen, where they gained even greater cultural prominence. Universal Studios' classic monster films of the 1930s and 1940s, featuring iconic creatures like Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, and the Mummy, solidified these beings in the public consciousness. These films often portrayed monsters as tragic figures, eliciting sympathy alongside fear. As the century progressed, monsters in horror fantasy began to reflect more contemporary anxieties. The rise of atomic power gave birth to radiation-mutated creatures like Godzilla, embodying fears of nuclear war. The zombie genre, popularized by George A. Romero's films, used the undead as metaphors for consumerism, conformity, and social decay. In recent decades, the concept of monsters has become increasingly nuanced. Writers and filmmakers have explored the monster's perspective, blurring the lines between good and evil. Works like Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles and Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth present monsters as complex beings with their own moral struggles and desires. The digital age has also influenced the evolution of monsters in horror fantasy. Internet folklore has given rise to new creatures like Slender Man, born from online communities and spreading through viral stories and images. These digital monsters reflect our modern fears of technology and the unseen threats that may lurk in the virtual world. As we look to the future, monsters in horror fantasy continue to evolve, adapting to our ever-changing fears and societal concerns. From environmental disasters to technological singularities, new terrors give birth to new monsters. Yet, at their core, these creatures remain powerful reflections of our inner selves, embodying the darkness we all carry within. In the end, monsters in horror fantasy serve as more than mere scares. They are mirrors to our society, catalysts for exploring complex themes, and reminders of the thin line between the familiar and the unknown. As long as there are fears to be faced and stories to be told, monsters will continue to haunt the landscapes of our imagination, challenging us to confront the darkness and find the light within.